All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of our coverage of India this week. So this week we are kind of having 2 coffee chats, sort of. The first one was with Chetan in India, and today I'm being joined by one of my colleagues, Chris Coleman, who has been a tour guide working alongside of me for over 20 years, and she specializes in France, but also she's a yoga instructor with her own yoga studio and has traveled in India and was potentially looking at setting up yoga tours to India. So good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning. Good to see you, Sarah.
Yeah. So you're coming to us from Minnesota, right?
That's right.
So you went to India a few different times, and the most recent time was what, maybe a year or two ago?
2019. I traveled a lot in 2019. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I think we're all saying that. So why don't we start by just talking about what brought you to yoga, because I know that that's a really big part of your life. I'm also a yoga practitioner. I practice about 5 days a week, and I know you do basically every day because you teach at your studio. So what brought you to yoga?
Well, yeah, I started when I was pregnant, actually. I have 2 daughters that are teenagers now, and my oldest is just turned 18. And when I was pregnant, I was living in Seattle with the first baby, and just, really I was at that point of the pregnancy where I was feeling huge and couldn't move around very easily and felt uncomfortable. And so I took a prenatal, yoga class, and it was fabulous. I felt amazing and gained a lot and was really helpful with breathing and visualization during the actual birth. And so that was the first like aha moment about yoga. And then from there, at some point, working with Rick Steves, I was looking for something to do to fill my off time, and came across a training that was pretty quick. And I was living in Minnesota at the time, and it was a vinyasa, which is more the athletic style of yoga. So I did that training, and it was a really perfect fit because then I could teach when I wasn't tour guiding. And it just really evolved organically when I was in France tour guiding. I had friends who were teachers that would fill in for me while I was gone. And then when I get back from France, I'd say, well, I really love teaching here. Can I continue to teach? And I was like, great. So then I just kind of built my little, I don't want to call it a yoga empire, but built my group of teachers and then studio. And so by the time I closed it this past last year due to COVID, I had 10 teachers. And, so sad I had to close the brick and mortar, but I am teaching online. But anyway, it's been a huge part of my health and wellness for sure.
Yeah, and I would agree. I started practicing probably, it was before my kids were born, but it was in that kind of weird time because working as tour guides, we only worked whatever from April through October, and then the rest of the year we fall apart and we sit on our couches and eat snacks. And I thought, I can't do this, so I started taking Iyengar yoga probably in 2001 or 2002, and I really like it just as a way. I mean, I've realized actually, especially through COVID, how important yoga actually is to my mental health. And I think that's an aspect a lot of people don't realize about it, is that it really is, it's good for your body, of course, but it's way better for your mental health. Do you find that as well?
Oh gosh, yeah. And in fact, the Western world really it's changing, but for the longest time in the States, we've really grabbed onto yoga and made it a workout for, a lot of the styles, not Iyengar, but, so it's evolved. And, anywhere else you go in the world, like India, for example, even France, there's more of a focus on the all over benefits and not just the workout factor. So yeah, I just thank goodness for yoga. I can't even tell you how many times I've said that just, especially during this pandemic, even before, anytime I've had situations where I've been stressed or upset, after I have a practice, I feel amazing, cleared head and much more ready to continue.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I just wish I could shout from the rooftops. Anybody who's feeling anxiety right now, which is most of us, I feel anxious. I've been having all kinds of anxiety attacks in the last few months. It's like, if I do that and then I go and I do yoga, all of a sudden it's sort of like, I can let it go, it kind of gives you a way to let it go. And you actually brought up an interesting point. You're talking about doing yoga in other countries. And that's something I think a lot of people don't realize. If you do practice yoga, or actually any other kind of exercise for that matter, you can do it while you travel, right? You've done
Yes.
it in Paris. I've done it in London.
Yeah.
But how do you find a studio when you're traveling?
Easy. Well, now with the internet, of course, if you know what style you like, easy to Google and figure that out. I have found a couple of studios in Paris that I really like. One was because of a woman that I follow, just one of these yoga rock stars, I call them, these people that are, show up in Yoga Journal magazine or what have you. She had done an event in Paris linked with one of these yoga studios. And I thought, well, if she likes it, it must be decent. And actually, my first private group that I brought to Paris, it was a yoga tour. We did tourism, but we also, it was like a Rick Steves tour with, some yoga inserted there and so on. And we went and we had some classes at that particular studio in Paris, and it was fabulous. So some of it has to do with maybe other people I know that have been there or attended that studio, or reviews online, right? There was another studio I went to that was Ashtanga, which is really the precursor to Vinyasa, very athletic. It was actually a style that was created to train the young Indian boys for the army in India. So that was the reason for that creation of style initially. And I went to one of those classes, and that place was great, except, everywhere you go, I love the cultural changes of not only how they do it, but even just the rapport that they have with the students. In that particular studio, I have a broken elbow I broke when I was a kid. And it's a really kind of grotesque when I straightened my arm out because the break was bad. And I know a good yoga instructor if they notice my arm, if they come over to me during class and try to fix my elbow. In this particular Ashtanga class in Paris, this instructor, it was the end of the class. There was maybe a dozen people in the studio. And he looks at me and he says, "What's wrong with your arm?" I said, well, broke it as a kid, still works, but it just made me laugh. Culturally, you would not do that in the States. It would be horrifying. I don't care. I was fine with it. But yeah.
I found it in London. I was in London repeatedly a bunch of times one year. And so I just got a membership at a yoga club for 2 months because I was coming and going all the time. And I really liked the club. It was in a neat neighborhood in Kensington. But I noticed that they really put their mats close together. Like in the US, we want to have all the space in the world, but oh my goodness, in other places, they pack people in there like sardines. It's pretty crazy.
Yes.
Did you find that in Paris as well? Do they do the same thing?
Not the places I've gone to, but I've had that in Minneapolis.
Oh, really?
If it's a busy studio, it's expected you're gonna pack them in. So yeah.
So when you went to India, your first trip was yoga focused, wasn't it?
Yeah, I went in 2017 with a studio that I had done yoga, more of a therapeutic yoga training with. And so it was a group of, I think there were 25 of us, and at least half the group I knew already from my training. And so that was a great, for me, kind of a safe way it felt to approach a country that really seems really foreign to me. I've traveled a lot, but mainly Europe. I'd been to Egypt, I'd been to Costa Rica, I'd been to, some other places, but not Asia really. And so that was a really good toe dip in the water, so to speak, to just feel out what is this country like. It was really a fabulous trip. The first part of the trip, we stayed in an ashram. So it was a 2-week trip. First week, we were in this ashram, which is basically like a yoga studio study camp. And they're all different, but this one was really lovely. It was in a place called Khajuraho. And not only was there the ashram, but there are also these fabulous temples. I think Reed might have talked about Khajuraho with you before. It has all like 25 of these temples that are just chock full of little statues and a lot of erotic scenes as well. Anyway, so we stayed there for a week, and then we went to Agra, which is where the Taj Mahal is, skipped Delhi completely, and then went up to Rishikesh, which is what I call yoga Mecca in the Himalayas. And it was great. When I looked at the itinerary and I realized they were not going to cover Delhi at all, I was shocked. I was thinking, this is you hear so much about Delhi. I just thought I need to see this city. So I went over early and did my own little travels around in Delhi by myself for a few days, and then joined the group for the ashram piece at the start. And Delhi by myself, I have to say, I had no issue with it. I think part of it, as you and I know, we're used to traveling, we're used to being even in uncomfortable situations and so on. And I trust my gut a lot. I think we all do when we are traveling, especially in maybe uncomfortable situations or foreign situations. We just trust how we feel about something and decide, am I good with this? Am I not good with this? And in that particular chunk of the trip, I booked walking tour, a foodie walking tour. I booked a cooking class, and I think those are the only two things I booked for myself. So I kept myself busy being with other people as an independent traveler, and that felt really great. The walking foodie tour was great. It happened to be just me and the tour guide, so I had the private tour, and we used the tuk-tuks, the little carts that you find all over, and then walked through, and we ate all these different foods, and it was a bit of a historical cultural tour too. It was great. And then the cooking class that I did, that was actually in this woman's home, and it was just myself and a German gal. And we, again, very, very private experience. The two of us with her. She brought us to a market. We shopped for some of the things we needed for our class. And then we went back to her home. And that was also really exciting to see, how do people live? And then we cooked, we ate, and it was fabulous. So I was really very glad that I did that, because like I felt that I was gypped by not seeing Delhi. I'm not blaming the program per se, but I thought, you really need to see the city. And it also set me up the confidence level of understanding a bit about the country already and the people, to jump into, this group setting. I'd say the ashram was beautiful, wonderful, but it was funny. There was a big fence all around it. And at some point I wondered, are they keeping us away from the outside world, or the outside world away from us? And I understand why they had this wall. It was because the town we were in is very poor. And there probably had been situations of, robberies and such like that. I don't know. But the funny thing was, they said, oh, feel free to go into town, but make sure you don't go alone. And we could, commandeer a car to get us back and forth. But they said, don't tell them where you're staying, which made me laugh, because they all knew where these white women were staying. We'd walk around the streets and they're all like, oh, you're at the ashram. Yes. What do you say? I mean, where else would we be staying? And that was
not a yoga body from 1,000 yards.
Well, that's a bunch of gringos, walking around. It just made me laugh. I'm like, oh yeah, that, like, they don't know where we're staying, really. I would say the only time that I really felt uncomfortable or maybe irritated, well, and there were probably other minor situations, but in that town, there were these young prepubescent boys that would come, and they would try to get you to go to their uncle's shop. And they were very persistent. Like, they would just follow, they were like stuck to you like glue, and, talking to you, asking all these fun questions. And you got to go to my uncle's shop. You got to go to my uncle's shop. And so that was a little, just I would say irritating, but you understand why they did that, And sometimes the shop was great. Sometimes it was bad. But...
Well, that hassle factor you find outside of India as well. I mean, I saw that a lot in Egypt, and there's other places in the world too. And, you always just kind of think, yeah, I don't like being hassled, but on the other hand, I look like a walking ATM to you. So, you kind of have a little bit of sympathy for them. So I bet you a lot of people watching read the book Eat, Pray, Love, or they saw the movie. So I know that that's really kind of cliche in a sense now, because so many people have read it and a lot of people make fun of it and all of that. But I'm just curious, was the experience at the ashram anything like it was described in the book? What was that experience like? Was it more like a yoga resort, or was it like a work experience kind of thing? How did you find it?
Well, the women I went with, they belong to a particular tradition. It's called the Himalayan tradition. So it was very serious. You know, it wasn't just to go play yoga. It was a study program, really. And we had our own teacher. Her name's Indu Aurora. She lives in the Twin Cities, actually. And I just got to show off her book. It's called Mudra. She's written some other books too, but that's her. And mudra, of course, are these hand gestures. And I've had this book for a while, but I've recently picked it up and have been teaching it online, teaching a different hand, you know, mudra each day. And when I teach online classes anyway. And anyway, so we brought her along with us, but each day it was very regimented. And I found it at first a little daunting when I saw the schedule. Let me see if I could just tell you, I have the schedule printed out here. Oh yeah, I'll tell you. So we woke up at 5:30 in the morning for chai. I know you did a chai talk the other day, right? Yesterday?
Yeah, he said that you drink chai like we drink espresso in Italy.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so good there. And it's so different from the chai that you buy in the grocery store here. It's much more mild there and very creamy, very good. So chai, we had about an hour to kind of get, you know, wake up. And there would be there was a shrine on the grounds, beautiful grounds. There were wild peacocks and wild green parrots and monkeys. And I mean, the sounds were just rich, beautiful sounds, natural animal sounds. Anyway, and then at 6, I think it was at 6 in the morning, there was a prayer. And you could, one morning I went into the temple to, you know, be part of the prayer. Even if you didn't know the chanting, it was all in Sanskrit, of course. I didn't know the words. I was just there and attended, and it was about a half hour. But if you preferred, they announced it. They had these speakers on the shrine so that you could be anywhere on the grounds of the ashram, and it was beautiful grounds that you could simply listen. And so I did that the rest of the mornings because I prefer to be outside in nature and just listen. And then breakfast was from 8 to 9:30. Then we had lunch. Oh, sorry. Then we had lunch. Breakfast, so between 9:30 and 12:30, we had 3 hours of study with our teacher. And we were studying a particular text that was around goddesses.
Oh, so a written study, not
practice. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Practice too. It was interspersed. It was very nice. We did some study, you know, learning, and then practice, and it was in and out. Lunch 12:30, 1:30. Then again, another study session from 1:30 to 4. And then at 4 o'clock we had chai. And then we had a break between like 5 till 6:30. Then we had dinner. And then that was it. And pretty much, you know, early to bed because we were early to rise. But what I found was, of course, the food was all vegetarian. I found that my body loved it, loved the routine, loved the, you know, every time, you know, this time of the day, we're doing this, we're eating this, we're having that. And I realized how discombobulated my normal schedule is. Like every day of mine is different. So sometimes I'm eating breakfast at this time. Sometimes I'm doing this or that. And it's not always the same, especially my eating times aren't always, you know, at a particular time. And I've thought about that as just interesting experiment to try to be more regimented with your eating patterns, and how you just, you know, not to be crass, but I was super regular, you know, it just felt great.
Well, I would actually say the same thing I've experienced in Asia. Just the diet is, you know, so much more vegetable focused, and kind of like, you know, rice and vegetables and good sauces, and no processed foods. I always feel so good when I come home and I usually lose some weight too when I spend some time in Asia because of that, because it's really just a cleaner. Sorry, somebody wants.
Hi, Kitty. Hi, Kitty.
Opal wants to say hi. She's a Himalayan, so it's an appropriate conversation.
What's her name?
Opal.
Oh, she's beautiful.
Yeah, she's our
my gosh.
Himalayan child. So anyway, I just think that is very, very interesting that you've had that experience, because one of the real fears that people have expressed to me when I've talked to them about going to India is about the food, that they're afraid that the food is going to make them sick, or they're not going to find anything they can eat, or it's too spicy, or they're not going to like it. What is your feeling about that? And what can you tell people that are worried?
Yeah, no, I found the food excellent. I love to eat though too, and I'm a little bit more courageous maybe than some as far as trying different foods. The spices are varied, and you can definitely find plenty of things that are flavorful but not hot spicy and easy to communicate that too. I mean, everywhere I went, they spoke English, and I found out, what would be really spicy or not. I would say most of the foods that I had, and I stayed in northern India too, by the way. I think southern India has different foods, different habitual foods. So in the north, I found the foods more flavorful and not crazy spicy, but you could always add spice. There was always like a spicy chutney or something you could add to it. What was I gonna say? And then there were like little food rules, like we had filtered water at the ashram. Everywhere else we went to eat, we had bottled water. There was one situation where people got ill on that trip. It was because we went to our one of our assistant guides on that tour. Her uncle had this restaurant, and we stopped. We were traveling by bus, so we stopped at it on the way. I forget where we were going that day, but we stopped there. And one of the other rules was for Americans and just us not used to the foods and such, there was to not eat fresh vegetables unless you knew exactly where they were coming from, and fresh fruits maybe too. Anyway, there was something on the menu, and we think it might have been some sort of a fruit yogurt thing. Not sure, but everyone got sick.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a day kind of a thing, but we had a long bus ride. It was not, for some people, it was horrid.
Yeah, well, and that's a kind of universal travel rule when you're going places that are a little bit more iffy. It's like, it's anything, you don't eat produce. It's not the produce that's the problem. The problem is it's been washed with water that is contaminated. And I remember years ago, I was in South America, and I would brush my teeth with bottled water, do the whole thing. And there was this one by the side of the road kind of restaurant where we went to, and my whole family got like whatever was on the menu. And I'm like, no lettuce on my sandwich. And I'm the only one that didn't get sick. So yeah, and that for me was like actually a really great test and an example that that's how people often get sick, is they eat vegetables that were washed. Yeah.
Yes. And we had let our guard down because we thought, oh, it's so-and-so's uncle's place, and we all relaxed our little rules for a moment. And it bit us in the butt, so to speak.
That's how everybody I know that's ever gotten sick on any tour with me, where there's been that kind of a situation, it's because you start feeling like, oh, like I'm not getting sick, I'm fine. And then you just sort of stop looking and thinking first, right?
Yes. So yeah, that was interesting.
So how was it traveling as a single woman too? Because I mean, that's something that I would feel a little bit intimidated going completely. I mean, I will go completely by myself and it'll be fine. But I think for women, there are certain destinations that it's a little bit of a question mark. How did you find it?
Well, I went with a girlfriend the second time in 2019, and that was geared more towards sussing out an itinerary with Reed's help, using his contacts in India to create or go through an itinerary that I wanted to offer. I'd planned to offer for a group, and have it be more of I guess more of an investigation of yoga in India, possibly an ashram experience for a day, but not necessarily a yoga retreat per se. Mainly because I found it's just so much of what we saw in India so interesting, and so much to it besides the yoga piece. And traveling with my girlfriend, we had a private driver a few times. We did join a cooking or a foodie tour in Delhi, again, like I did, different company, different person. And that was great. I really feel, for me, as an independent woman traveling, or even just there were two of us, connecting with an organization or connecting with, having everything kind of set up so that you know what to expect, and perhaps you are feeling that support of being with that local guide or that private driver guide, you know, whatever. I never felt uncomfortable in any way. I can't even think of a time that we were feeling that we were in the wrong place. And just like anywhere, you know, you don't go down that dark alley, you know, and you go stay where everyone else is, and you go to where the main sites are, and not down maybe a road that you have no idea where it goes to, and just keeping aware of your surroundings and know where you are, right?
Do you think the locals considered you a curiosity because you were traveling on your own? Because I know, like, when I walk around Cairo, for example, I definitely get those vibes like, what are you doing? You know, did you feel that kind of like curiosity, like, why are you wandering around without an escort?
I would say the tuk-tuk drivers every so often would ask, where is your husband? Where is your man? Or, but not overly. No, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have expected that. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So you have some images to share with us, right?
Yeah, I have a lot. I'll try not to overwhelm, but we can kind of breeze through them.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the difficulties. I mean, I love doing these interviews and talking with people, but I feel like India is one of those destinations that the conversation only gets you so far, right? That actually the vibrancy of the images, that's the thing that's really striking, right?
Yeah. And before we do that, I just want to show, you probably see in the background, I've got this this Kurta thing on. It's bright green. And I don't know if you can see the detail, but it's, really cool, like stitching on it. And then I got a red and white one, and then I have a white one, and then the orange. These are like fun kind of harem pants. I think these were like $3,
Cool. Cheap. So the shopping must be super fun then at the markets.
Really fun. And I'm wearing my India jewels too. You could see I think this is citrine.
I have been admiring those. Those are gorgeous.
And then I got my bling bling ring. I think it's green amethyst. I think that's right. And I didn't realize this. And I found this out in Jaipur, and I'll show you my pictures here, that India is where these semi-precious jewels go to get polished and shaped.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you can get beautiful jewelry for great prices. So, okay, I will go ahead and share my photos. And then I'm going to turn it into a slideshow. Hold on, but I'll shut off the music. Okay, so this, oh, sorry. Okay, this is the airport in Delhi. And this was my first like really interesting experience just at the airport. These are all mudra, welcoming you to India. And I just showed you that mudra book. There are some of the gestures are related to, and mudra could be like even this namaste, that's a mudra, right? And the idea of mudra with regard to health and wellness and yoga is that we have all these nerves in our body, these nerve endings, and especially in our hands, right? And so different connections that you do with your hands can have different therapeutic effects. And then, of course, Indian dance is very much into using the hands. And if you've ever seen any beautiful Indian dancing where they're really into the hands are a huge part of the dance. And so this is a welcome to India. Mudra, each one of those means different things, but I was super impressed with that. Each of these hands are like 15 feet tall. Can't really tell.
What a beautiful airport.
Yeah, right. And then namaste. So again, namaste. And I'd been told in so many yoga classes, oh, they always say namaste. This is a real greeting. And it truly is. So usually you would be greeted with namaste coming into your hotel. The hotel staff might be saying namaste to you. It is truly a greeting, hello, but I liken it a little bit to Gesundheit, like a bit of a blessing too. I see you, I recognize you, I honor you. But it's also hello. Anyway, I thought this was into the Delhi Metro, and I don't have a picture of the Delhi Metro. when I stayed there by myself the first time around, I took the metro, and this was breakfast in my hotel. And the metro, I felt like I was in Paris. It was built, I'm not sure what company made it, but it was very European looking. I took the metro into the city from my hotel. This was a Holiday Inn, and they had a buffet, and the different sauces you can get with your meals. And I took this tuk-tuk. Oh, this wasn't a tuk-tuk. Sorry, this was like an Uber guy. So once I took the metro, and another time I took a little Uber. We were on the freeway to downtown, and he pulls over and he wanted to do a selfie with me. We're on the freeway, and I'm you can't tell how nervous I am right there, but I'm thinking, oh my God, we're gonna get rear-ended anytime now. And he really wanted a picture with an American.
So funny story. I was in an Uber in Morocco, and the guy pulled over just like that. He wanted to take a picture, and he wanted to buy me a hamburger at McDonald's because he thought that's what I would like.
Oh my. Oh yeah, no, this guy was so excited to have my picture with him. I thought, okay, good, let's do this quickly, and we're gonna die.
That's something I think we forget, that actually, we're so dazzled by their cultures and by how different things are, but we are different in their culture, and we're kind of like maybe the most interesting thing that'll happen all day sometimes. So it's always important to keep that in mind, right?
Yes. So this was my first time over, and this woman was the woman who did the cooking class. And of course we're looking at spices and such, but I want to call your attention to, can you see my arrow?
I'm still seeing the image of the driver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now?
Nope.
Well, that's weird.
Why don't you exit out of share screen and then go back in again? I think it's frozen.
Okay, exit out.
Yeah, exit out share screen. Okay, now jump back into it. Let's see. It just froze, I think.
Do you think it has to do with making it a slideshow?
No, I just think that technology sometimes does not cooperate.
I know, right? I find it. Okay, do you see this?
Nope. It just
really?
says Chris Coleman has started screen sharing.
Okay, wait. You know what? I'm not going to make it a slideshow. I think I'll just. Do you see that?
No, it's still just a black screen that says Chris Coleman has started screen sharing.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to change my, because I am connected to, like, hardwired to the internet.
Thanks for being patient, you guys. Same thing problem we had yesterday with Chetan. Chetan dropped in the middle of our tea lesson, poor guy. Yeah.
Okay, let me try this again. So now I'm hardwired to my router. Do you see that?
No images yet. It just says Chris Coleman has started screen sharing.
Oh, nuts. What do you think? Okay, wait. Anything there?
Yeah, it's not working. So, can you queue up your images on your phone?
And then what would I do with that?
You can show them to me.
Oh, you mean like this?
Yeah, it works.
Oh,
it's not ideal, but it works.
Okay, so, well, this would be, I'm not sure how I would actually, can I share it? Hang on. Oh, here we go. You know, I wonder, my iPad. Let me see if I can get on my iPad. That might be better. Yeah, thanks everybody for being patient with us.
So are you planning to go back to India?
I would love to. I really would love to. No plans right now. Okay, so you see me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the scene. Of course, then my light is, I'm just gonna move my light. I've got one of those fancy lights that makes me look all right. Oh, see, look at that halo. Okay, wait. Well, you can see this gal, she's in the market, and Hard to tell, but in the back of, oh, here, maybe I'll zoom in. There are shrines everywhere. One of the biggest impressions I had about India is about ceremony and symbolism. Shrines on tuk-tuks, you know, little gods like Ganesh, the little elephant god who is he paves the way, it removes obstacles. Little tuk-tuks, you know, little Ganesh in the tuk-tuks all the time. Every store has a little shrine somewhere in their store. And it looks like they might have Lakshmi as their god or goddess. And each family really chooses a god or goddess that it might be just their family tradition of honoring a particular god or goddess because there are so many of them. And in the back of this store, looks like, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a picture of somebody with a mala bead around the picture. And then underneath, there is a little shrine, a little photograph of a goddess, it looks like, and some marigold flowers, probably some incense. Usually incense will be burning, but that was really impressive to me too, is everyone honors a god of some sort. And we really need to think about it as it's all the same. Whether it's Lakshmi or Ganesh or Vishnu or any of these gods or goddesses, it's really all the same. It's just another variation on a theme. You know, the God, if you think about it as God has all these attributes, and each of these gods or goddesses is, you know, known for a certain attribute, but in the end, they're all the same. So anyway, so we did the cooking class, and yeah, hard to see that one. And I want to show you also with symbolism, the German girl and I that both did that class. Can you see that okay? We got marigold necklaces, and marigolds are very much a part of ceremony, weddings. The marigold flower is representative of positive energy, the sunshine, brightness. So you often will get, this is me going into a hotel in Agra with my roommate, Amber, and we got the bindi, the little color, you know, here in the third eye, and also the marigold necklaces. And the bindi is, you know, it's really this little bright, might be a jewel, might be a little mark they make on your forehead with pigment. It is representative of third eye center, a state of enlightenment, of creation. It's the Hindus, the Jains do this. Anytime we had any kind of a ceremony or a special experience in a temple, we were once in a cave, and we got not only, well, we didn't get flowers in the cave, but we got a bindi, and then we also got a red, well, this is representative in this book. You see on her wrist, hers is more of a bracelet, but a red string. I don't know if you've ever noticed people with a little red string bracelet on in India or even in Asia anywhere. And that is given to you when you are performing or part of a certain ceremony. They will wrap this red string around your wrist, and you're supposed to just keep it on till it falls off. And it's a reminder of, you know, whatever the celebration was about. Maybe you let go of something, like you let go of, you know, your sins, or your, you know, maybe you were honoring your ancestors or something. So that's symbolism again, and ceremony. Some of the beautiful pigments that you see in the shops.
What do they use those for?
So this was, I'm trying to think, this was running up to the Holi festival, or Holi, H-O-L-I. Mm-hmm. And it is in March. It's always the first full moon of the month, which is usually mid-March. And I was there. I can see if I can show you really quickly. These came at the end of my list. You can see there's my friend Lisa and I, covered in color, and it's a celebration of spring, and it's, you know, representative, you know, letting go of, you know, the sins, and, you know, getting rid of the bad stuff, and bringing on springtime, and even the cows in the streets get it. So a lot of times people are, we were at this place in Rishikesh, and we had a party with the people staying there. This guy next to me was the guru that people were coming to see. We weren't staying there to see him. This was the second time I was in India, but we celebrated with all these people that were basically doing like a yoga training with him. And so you can see all the people dancing. There's color everywhere, the pigment, and then they were playing in the Ganges in the river and washing off after. So it's a big celebration again for spring. And
did you, as a foreigner, feel comfortable just jumping in with their celebrations?
Well, good question. Good question. That was maybe the one place where we really were thoughtful about where we were going to celebrate Holi or Holi, however you want to say it. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, to be honest. Because we had heard that in bigger cities that women were, you were a target. And because there was so much, going on with the pigment, and there were water balloons and water guns and people having fun, there were also the hooligans that were accosting women and such. And my friend and I were like, don't really care to be involved in that if that's really true. And the place we were staying had their own celebration. It was all these, yoga people. And we thought, let's just stay here. And then we did talk to some people who went into town and they celebrated, but they were also at an ashram that was in town in the city center. So they were again in kind of an enclosed area with some people. And that they said they had a good time there too. So we did have to be thoughtful about that because, crowds are scary. Can be scary.
Yeah, well, and being obviously not a local, you're a target pretty much. So
yeah,
that's understandable.
That was a good question though, because that really was something that we had to think about. And I think the other thing with traveling, independently or even just with one other person as a woman, asking lots of questions. Find someone you trust, a hotel person, a restaurateur, or even a shopkeeper that, ask those questions like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? And, Indian people are so friendly, so lovely, so generous, and full of information and help anytime you needed it. I never felt, I just felt really well treated and respected there. It was a good experience. Okay, so chaos and the calm amongst the chaos. I think that's another thing that people are maybe worried about when it comes to India, because it is chaos in a lot of places. But just like anywhere, people see these pictures of India with tons of people and packed and oh my gosh, there's no personal space. But that's not true. I mean, it's like anywhere. There are concentrated amounts of people in certain places, but you go out a little ways and you're in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody. So it all depends on where you are and what you're doing, of course. But what I was amazed by is the noise. My first impression getting out of the airport was, first of all, the pollution in Delhi was horrible. Once you got out of Delhi, it was a different story, unless you were in traffic in a tuk-tuk. And so we often had, the masks or, scarves because you could feel it. You could feel it burning your eyes and your throat sometimes. I noticed that when I first arrived in Delhi. And I'm trying to think what time of the year that they burn, just like in Europe. I think that's in the fall. They burn a lot of the, from the agricultural, like the vines, the extra vines in the vineyards, for example, they'll burn those in the fall. I'm talking about France right now, but same kind of thing happens in agricultural places elsewhere in the world. And in Delhi, I want to say it's every fall, possibly, the smog in the city is horrible because all the farmers outside the city are burning all this stuff. And so there's all this, smoke on top of the pollution. Anyway, but beyond that, the noise, everyone is honking their little horns, but they're not angry. They're trying to say, hey, I'm here on your left. Hey, I'm here on your right. You know, they're honk, 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 honk. And, you know, but you get 100 of them doing that. And you're just like, ah, you know, it's for us that are used, especially I live in the country and you know, I'm in the country in Minnesota. And so for me, that's noise pollution for me. That's like, ah, but at some point you kind of get used to it. And then you recognize no one's angry, no one's yelling or, you know, having a, you know, fight with somebody else. That is just part of the way they drive, because they don't respect any lines if there are any on the road. They just, wherever there's a space, they sneak in there, just like in Cairo. You've been to Cairo, you know, just anywhere there's space, that's their spot, you know. And surprising calmness amongst the chaos. I remember just staring at some of the tuk-tuk drivers while they're navigating all this crazy stuff, and they're just cool as cucumber, just, you know, honk honk here and there, and just it's amazing.
It's organized chaos. And I often say that, you know, spending so much time in Sicily has prepared me to be a traveler anywhere in the world, because like I'm so used to that organized chaos where it's like you see all the, you know, the honking or the noise or whatever, and you just sort of go, oh, wait a second, there's actually a method here. Like you can find that method if you look for it. So that's a really good tip just for travelers anywhere in the world, is when you see something that looks like chaos and it's too much and it's overwhelming, look for the organization within the chaos, because there always is, right?
Yes. Yeah. The other thing I found somewhat refreshing was that, you know, there's always someone trying to quote unquote take your money. And I'm not talking about robbers, but, you know, people selling you stuff or trying to, you know, get you to buy this or that. It's very transparent there, in the sense that you know exactly what people are doing and wanting. Whereas compared to our culture, I feel like everything's so glossed over, like our marketing, and, you know, it's meant to make you feel the need to buy something. And there it's very, I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but there's just no bullshit. Sorry. But, you know, it's, you see the bullshit, like you see it and you know what it is. It's clear. And you can see the connections, like the tuk-tuk driver brings you to his favorite jewelry shop, and you know there's a connection there. You see it, you understand it, you know.
And go to my cousin's jewelry shop. Oh, and then let's eat at my cousin's restaurant. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Again, something I'm used to from Italy. That's the same thing there.
Yeah.
But, so that leads me to a question then. When you are out in markets and that kind of thing, do people bargain, or do you pay the price? Or, I mean, I'm assuming as soon as they see somebody like you and me, they're like, oh, let's quadruple the price.
Bargain for sure. Depends on where you are. You know, I think like my elephant pants there, the orange things, I think we were able to get them down a little bit. They were already super cheap, you know. I think the store we were at, we bought a few things and we were able to get a little reduction. I went to a cashmere. You can get some really nice cashmere, like scarves and such there. And that I was able to negotiate down. So yeah, definitely bargain. And the jewelry, for example, yeah, absolutely. And you know, they're not offended.
No, I mean, I find that pretty universal. It is funny though, depending on the country, like what your starting price should be. Because I noticed that, you know, in Thailand, I'll do maybe half. And then if I get 75% of the original price, that seems about right to me. But I know like in Egypt, for example, if you should start at 10 to 20% of the price there.
Oh, really?
Seriously, yeah. You have to start super, super low, especially in touristic areas, because they may want, you know, for a pair of leather slippers, I think they wanted like $25. And I'm like, I'll give you two. And that's kind of the thing, is that, you know, and actually knowing a local, and as you did, was really smart, even if you're traveling independently, to go with a group or a local guide just for a day so they can teach you the ground rules, right?
Totally. And that's what I did. My very first day in Delhi was with this local guide. And yeah, he showed me how to cross the street and how to, what to look for. And what was interesting though, when I went back 2 years later and did another foodie tour, the same spice shop, I think there was maybe one or two of the stops that were exactly the same as the other guy. And I thought, okay, this shop has a little connection to these local guides. I mean,
They all work together. I mean, we know it's a closed environment, you know, the whole tour guiding thing. But that is a really just good general tip. I mean, I would say anybody who's going to a country that they have no idea about, the first city you land in, look for a local guide and hire them for the day. And I mean, in some places, it's really, especially countries like India, it's so inexpensive. It may sound crazy. Oh, I can't afford to hire a private guide or a private driver for a day, but it's not that expensive, is it?
No, it's so reasonable. So reasonable. And you know, I know we're coming up on near the end of our time. There were a couple things I wanted to show you or talk about. One of my most intense experiences, well, there was a lot of them. And I know that Reed talked about this the other day, the intensity of India. It is every day you're exhausted because you have experienced the extreme of everything, sounds, smells, emotions, you know, every extreme of this, of every sense is just been explored, you know? And so by the end of the day, you're like, wow, that was amazing. And so that's what's so phenomenal about India. There's no boring days there. It's something else. And it's, the other thing too that I want to bring up is that I think a lot of people are maybe concerned to go there because they don't want to see poverty. They don't want to see, you know, they don't want to be hassled by poor people in the street or whatever. And yeah, that's part of it. But and Reed said it well. I think men are better at compartmentalizing than women are. But at some point you realize you can't save them all. You know, you can't just pour out all your money and then you'll end up like them on the street. You know what I mean? You can't do it. And so at some point you realize, okay, I can't do that. And this is part of the experience, is that, you know, it's in your face. The sad parts of society, we have it too. We have some horribly sad parts of our society, but they're hidden away, you know?
Yeah, and that, I would share that feeling when I've been in some countries where there's been abject poverty, but it's right out in the open. You know, it's like people, like in Cairo, people living in a trash city like that. It really hurts to see it because it's shocking. Yeah. And you want to help, or even just people who live such incredibly modest lifestyles where they don't have a car, they have a horse instead. And you're just like, I want to help you. You can't, you're right. You can't help everybody. So, you know, that is something that takes some thought before you venture out into these kind of more exotic destinations, is just to be mentally prepared, I think, is the best way to know you're going to see things that you haven't seen before. Right.
Yeah. And not to diminish it at all, but one of the people I'd met, it was actually this guru guy at an ashram that was talking about, he brought some people up into the hills to this little village, these American women, they were probably guys too, but Americans. And this person was living in a very, you know, a very humble abode, dirt floor, you know, view in the Himalayas, beautiful setting. And one of the American women said to her, this woman that was living there, and said, well, don't you want more? Or, you know, something like, are you okay? Or asking her some question like, don't you need more or whatever? And this woman looked at her and said, what do I need? I've got everything I need. Look at my view. I have food, you know? And so also recognizing our personal map, I guess I call it, right? Where we're coming from. I view my world from where I was born in Minnesota, as an American, as a woman, And so to put that map on somebody else, or that cultural view on someone else, isn't fair. I mean, that person living in the Himalayas thought their life was fabulous, you know, and to that person who asked the question, she thought, how could she be happy? She's sleeping on a dirt floor or whatever, you know? Yeah. So I think it's important to just recognize that piece too, that just because you think it's a certain way, you don't know their world, right? You don't know exactly what's happening there.
Yeah, not everybody needs a flat screen TV and an SUV to survive. It's different everywhere. So I'm just thinking, if people who are watching are interested in going to India and having a yoga point of view, but maybe not making it entirely about yoga, what is their best way to have kind of a combined experience? Because I know you were putting a tour together like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm a yoga enthusiast, but I'm not a teacher. So I wouldn't want to go and spend a month at an ashram, but I would like that to be a component of my visit to India. What
Yeah.
would you recommend?
Yeah, no, I would definitely do that. And I would, depending how long of a time you have, I would carve out, at least maybe 3 days if you, depending on the ashram, because some are very serious. And like, if you're going to stay there, you need to stay a certain amount of time. But this one that I stayed at last in the Himalayas, we stayed for like 3 nights. I think their minimum was like 3 nights. And it was considered like a spa ashram. We took a few of their classes while they were hosting a training at the same time. And that was good. That was, a good experience. So there's plenty of options out there. You probably have to do a lot of research with, I don't know that I could tell you certain ones. I don't know enough of them. There's so many of them.
How did you pick the one that you went to?
My friend Lisa knew of someone who had stayed there.
Okay.
And so I have to say the setting was gorgeous. It was a good experience overall. However, they were doing a training at the same time. So I don't know that I would do that again because I felt like we might have had some other a different experience if there were more generalized classes for anyone who wanted to join, kind of a thing. We felt a little kind of pushed aside, I guess. Yeah. So I guess I would, ask around. You probably know people that have been to a place or know of someone that, recommends a place.
So going through like maybe asking a yoga studio if you're part of that kind of you might be able to recommend.
Yeah. And,
cool.
And every place is going to have a different flavor, maybe a different focus, or you might want to make sure that you understand what the rules are and what they expect of you so that you're not showing up wanting to have, a party every night and they're not, into that. Most places aren't going to be open to that. Shoes off. Anytime you're going into a building, your shoes are off. You're typically no alcohol, no drugs, all vegetarian typically too, and so yeah, just make sure your expectations meet the place.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Chris, and telling us about your experiences in India. I think that it's such an interesting destination, but definitely feels, I think, a little more intimidating than some of the other places that we've been. But you've had a great experience and you would recommend it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. So if you guys are interested in learning more about the things that Chris is doing, she has a website called Chocolate Suitcase where she's doing a lot of virtual experiences. So you can connect with her there. And thank you so much, Chris. We'll have to have you back to talk about some of your other things you're doing later on.
Okay, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Namaste.
Namaste. Take care.